Have you ever thought about the idea that you could be struck with a scenario where a higher power puts a ticking time bomb on you, giving you a destination and a goal you must obtain? And if you don't obtain this goal, you will be a living corpse, or you will be solidified as a statue for the government to keep. With no hints, this god expects you to figure out your goal. Some people find it, some people give up and walk the earth as a zombie through the end of time. Final Fantasy XIII dives into that scenario and executes it roughly well with a few hiccups. This game is regarded as the worst Final Fantasy to many, but there's a cult following for it. I really don't think there's a love it or hate it with this game for me personally, because I truly fall in the middle with my thoughts. Let's talk about it, starting with the prologue. The game gets a lot of hate because of the terminology that is used and not explained, but the game expects you to go to the data logs and figure it out yourself and read the definitions, so I'm going to provide them here. This game takes place on a planet named Grand Pulse and is separated by two massive areas, Pulse and Cocoon. Cocoon, which is the underworld that runs ravaged with deadly creatures inspired by dinosaurs. The environment is very primal and beautiful, but dangerous. Cocoon, which is a society more futuristic and a built continent above Pulse. Both of these areas are ran by their own deities known as Fal'Cie, derived from the French words sky and servant. These Fal'Cie have the authority and power to turn humans and creatures into Pulse-Lissi, humans that can wield magic power, but they are fear-mongered as infected fugitives that must be exterminated or captured by the government. When you are turned into a Pulse-Lissi, you are given a vision of a goal, or as the game calls it, your focus, but it's vague and often leaves people not knowing what they have to do. You either complete your focus or you will turn into a monster known as a Seath, which literally translate to mean death in Japanese. These Seath neigh around the planet until they are killed. Eventually they will turn to stone unless they have a growing attachment to the world, and then they will become undying, a massive Seath that is carried by hatred. Due to a war in the past, a fragment of a Pulse Fal'Cie was left in a town of Pulse that quote-unquote tainted the civilians, which leads to a thing called the Purge, which is a transportation of all the civilians that touch this artifact, and these people must be moved to Pulse and out of Cocoon immediately. Alright, that's all the lore, so let's get on with the story. We set out as a baddie under the hood on a purge train, Lightning, with no explanation on anything, just faces all the soldiers at once and breaks out of the crash train with our boy Saz, who is a ex-pilot and here on other terms. Lightning fights through all the guards and army artillery in order to get somewhere. We then see soldiers are dispatched and start a massacre on the civilians that crashed on the purge train, leading to this purge, as the name describes it, not being a relocation, but rather a bloody massacre for the tainted. Snow, a leader of a group that was a gang for bottom safety called Nora, takes up arms with his crew to fight back against the Cocoon army. During all this, the ancient artifact that infected all of the people of Cocoon is being transported back to Pulse, and Snow states that he wants to get back into the artifact to save his fiancée. He inspires many other civilians to take up arms, essentially creating a resistance army. Snow is unable to save a mother who joined and faced fear, but there was nothing he could do. Lightning states that she's going to the artifact as well because her sister is trapped in there. Saz thinks she's crazy but goes along with her anyway. We meet a new character named Hope, who is the child of the mother that was killed that blames Snow for her death, and with the help of the lovable valley girl Vanille, decides to chase after Snow to exact vengeance. These five meet up at the Vestige, which is the name of the artifact, at the bottom where they find Sarah, who is Lightning's sister and Snow's fiance. When the group comes together, she gets hard. in which she completes her focus before she goes to tell our party to save Cocoon, vaguely. The group is jump scared by a pulse fal'Cie that lays dormant in the vestige. Driven by anger, Snow drives headfirst into the lair of the fal'Cie, determined to find answers. Lightning is also pissed about the loss of her sister. The group fights the fal'Cie in destroying it, though where you think they are killed, the fal'Cie has branded them as l'Cie, with a monstrous entity vision destroying what looks like Cocoon. Waking up branded in a beautiful icy sea that was a result of a fal'Cie's demise. We are fugitives wanted by the government. What do we do now? Do we destroy Cocoon like our focus says, or do we save it like Sarah's last wish? The party has come to a split decision and wanders off looking for answers. Throughout the game, we will get flashbacks of days just before the purge that are set place in bottom, showing what our gang was doing before they eventually crossed fates. My favorite was the scene with Snow proposing to Sarah, with a youthful interaction that happened after where they rode on a flying motorcycle into the fireworks. Or Saz's time with his son watching the fireworks, with who I thought was a fucking Auga wife. I was so wrong. You get to see a little bit of time of Lightning interacting with her sister, which doesn't do Lightning any favors without context. Lightning really seems like a bitch here, but we get a little more details later that may or may not change your mind depending on what type of person you are. Majority of the game is actually just going through the environments of Cocoon and learning of the character struggles and everyone having their own little mini character arc. Like Lightning in the beginning, she's a cold soldier and she's kind of a bitch. Non-derogatory, because you aren't giving much about her character and it makes her seem very cold without reason, but she has reasons, they just aren't explained yet. She's just as confused as you are. She has many moments with her maternal instincts when looking at their hope. She's very tsundere-like, but not in a romantic way, obviously, because she'd be in jail. She literally hates Snow because of his constant hope that Sarah's alive, and is pessimistic and believes it's too late. Saz, who is probably the most humanized character, he has doubts when faced with danger, unlike Lightning who just goes with it, and always uses deductive reasoning anytime he takes a risk. He's very pessimistic and has a hatred for l'Cie for the beginning of the game, for a good reason due to an incident. Still extremely likable because he's a quirky person in the group, and sometimes has very comedic moments. Hope, a kid who gets dragged into the adventure to seek revenge for the death of his mother. He has some annoying characteristics at first, but he eventually becomes very likable from his point of view. His arrogance and hatred towards Snow is justified because he's still a young kid who doesn't understand all logic that can go into a situation, and he embodies the exact opposite of Hope, despair, after becoming the l'Cie. Snow, who is the antithesis to Hope, who actually embodies Hope with the ambition to save Sarah, his fiancée, after becoming crystallized and achieving her focus. He's very charismatic and always optimistic guy who is impossible to hate, though he is the reason the crew became l'Cie. His hard-headedness rushed into the chambers of the Pulse l'Cie to try and bring back Sarah. Vanille, a awesome, seems very carefree valley girl with an irritating voice that will grow on you, but she's constantly moaning in the mic, which apparently the voice actor was told to do because they need to be as close to the Japanese voice actors as possible. She's kind of just a wholesome college girl who just wants the best for everyone, but also hiding all the negativity with her mask of a dumb valley girl, but she's actually really smart. And she was actually apparently supposed to be the MC, so that's why she's the narrator. And there's one more party member, but I won't talk about them now. And I'll talk about the characters' arcs and everything in the spoiler section at the end. This is almost barely a JRPG. Without a doubt, it is the most linear Final Fantasy, but I don't mean that all negatively. The story makes the splitting of parties have to be linear due to the game not really having towns or shops to go into. Instead, you are buying equipment and items from an eShop, really running Amazon out of business with this instantaneous purchase. However, currency is hard to come by because it is not dropped by battles. Instead, you have to find it in a chest or sell some items. These dungeons are incredibly linear and entirely level focused rather than open like every other Final Fantasy. The exploration is dulled down to walk 5 steps to the left. Oh, there's a chest. Oh, look behind you, there's a chest. Which is disappointing because a lot of the thrill from JRPGs is rare loot. I'll be honest, this combat is fucking donkey doo-doo water dog shit in the beginning. Like, it's so fucking boring, and the fact that the first 2 hours doesn't introduce any of the battle system's core mechanics baffles me, but it's entirely for the story purposes. No need to manage items anymore, which is both a blessing and a curse. You get killed in the last battle? Oh, your health is at 14 out of 1,000 after the boss? Well, your party just auto recovers. No need to heal after every battle anymore. Potions are kinda useless. This leads to a very boring playstyle of just finish the fight no matter what. This is an interesting turn-based battle system that uses the famous ATB system, which is a timer for when you can use your moves. This can be sped up or slowed down or stopped completely, leaving you defenseless. But the thing that sets it different is the stagger system that you see in newer Final Fantasies like VII Remake. The same gameplay loop. Hit their weakness and to continue to bring your stagger bar up and they will take more damage, or you can just launch them in the air so they can't do shit. Here's the kicker. You can only manually control one party member at a time, which is unlike Persona FES. Here it actually fucking works. And the AI aren't brain dead planks from Ed, Edd and Eddy. Once you get past the prologue of chapters 1 and 2, you're open to this paradigm system, which give your party members different roles to equip, and you can combine your team of 3 with these roles to essentially have different strategies and formations. Commando, physical attacks that slow down and stagger bar so that you can continue to stagger the enemy. Ravager, the magic-based attacks that build up stagger faster. Medic, healer, nuff said. Synergist, the motherfucker that buffs your party with spells like Protect, Bravery, and Faith, increasing your stats for the battle. Saboteur, the motherfucker that provides debuffs for enemies such as D-Protect or D-Shell. Sentinel, the iron wall that tanks the damage and distracts the enemy so that you can focus on not getting your shit rocked. You upgrade these roles with the Crystarium that adds to your stats and moves which kind of move in a circle, so you can't really get creative with it. I would advise to fight 88% of the battles in order to upgrade this thing, because the points can really get expensive later on. Combining these roles into your team of 3 or through most of the game, you'll be in team of 2 to create strategies such as Relentless Assault, which is Commando Ravager Ravager, which builds up stagger without losing it too fast, or Try Disaster Ravager Ravager Ravager, which builds up stagger and fastest, which builds up stagger the fastest, with fear of losing it all if some of your attacks don't hit. Or my personal favorite, Bully, which is Commando Saboteur Synergist. This allows for your commando to get super buffed and the enemy to have so many debuffs you don't even have to worry about staggering sometimes. Many times I had to switch up my team comp because of my current wasn't working, and it leads to boss battles never feeling the same. However, the normal combat can be a snooze fest at times. I mean, I would literally sit in my chair slump while just repeatedly pressing A near the end of the game, just waiting for the XP to go through. Around 80% of the game, the Crystarium really opens up and any character can learn any class, but it's mad expensive and I would advise you not to do that, even though the game tells you to. Just focus on the character's specific ones because the ending has some difficult mini bosses. The game is pretty well balanced and I would only have to grind for a short bit, about 2 hours, because I skipped a few encounters. in order to rush near the 70% mark because I was just feeling burnt. Also, around the ending chapters, the game is literally so different. There's a massive open area with over 50 side quests, which they are mainly just mini and side boss battles, but some are really fucking fun. This open area is very immersive for 2009. It's essentially a mini open world, though it does have the load times in other zones. I forgot to mention that the summons are literally vehicles in this game. You get a fucking car, a dragon, a chariot, and a motorcycle. And there's like something else I forgot. But that's pretty fucking cool. Too bad they're kinda ass. Like, I think I used them once for each character because I wanted to try it. They didn't really help a lot when I used them. Overall, I really enjoyed the combat enough that it was just a different experience. The boss battles were very well balanced with multiple ways to be beaten on a lot of them. The stagger system definitely boils down to spam a weakness a lot of the time though. I also wish the game's combat opened up sooner to truly have fun with its potential. This game is absolutely stunning when it comes to character models and cutscenes. Let me remind you, this game came out when I was 10 years old. When shit like World at War came out, one of my favorite CODs from back in the day, but that game looks like my asshole compared to this game. But I may be biased because I played on the PC. Let me see, what did it look like in 2008? Still incredible. As I always say, add some art style to your games. Hyper-realism ages like me. Like, look at the skin detail, the pores on these models that don't look like a 2K My Player, and the way the hair flows so effortlessly. The pause menu really feels like it was supposed to be come out on the original Xbox. The menus make me nostalgic for Halo 2, which my awesome metalhead cousin let me borrow when I was in 4th grade, even though this game came out a generation after that. I like the shop menus as well. Simple fits well and reminds me of the DSi eShop. The environment of Pulse, Lake Brescia, Hanging Edge, and so much more are just breathtaking to look at, especially if you find like a nice cliff to just stare out into the mountains. This game has some incredible OST. I really enjoy the main boss battle theme, which is Saber's theme, which is playing right now. That tone cluster in the beginning gives an eerie dissonance from the rest of the track, especially when these chilling horns come in for the chorus, and every time the chorus plays, it just gets more aggressive and epic. Just listen. Or the main battle theme, Blinded by Light, starts off with a heavy, thinking you're about to go into a darker sounding track with those power chords in the background, but then this comes in to make the song feel like you just got a second wind, gut punched by a fucking violin. The character themes deserve some praise too. My favorites being Snow, who has a slow build up with some groovy drums, and then out comes that killer guitar riff. Then the guitar leads its way through the rest of the song, fits Snow's badass nature very well. Hope's theme has the nomad guitarist runaway feel, like a guy that had just hit the train tracks looking like he asked what was everybody laughing at. It feels like it's withering and is slowly losing hope, just like he is, with the death of his mother. The finger picking is truly a joy to listen to. Sarah's theme sounds like solidified tears that would be shedding from this woman who just recently got engaged, who has been put into a slumber, would feel. Imagine you find the love of your life and you think of all the moments you'll have while married and you are taking from the world in a never-ending purgatory immediately after. Not going to lie, I cried. The level themes are pretty incredible too. This intense piano and obnoxious bass accompanied by a violin later on fills the space with, I need to get the fuck out of here. The tension makes your heart thwomp like crazy, and then an eerie, almost sinister violin showing up makes you know there's something else going on. Nothing feels right. The sense of urgency you get when you hear the track while in Lake Brescia. The violin in the background feels like it's rushing you, reminding you at this point you are a lessee now, and you need to get your shit together because you are a ticking time bomb. Gapra Greatwood, while a very boring level to look at and play, it's carried by this chill frost of a piano and light-voiced choir with a small dosage of drum and bass influence peeking throughout the track. In its entirety, I would say that this is the most ambitious sounding OST for the Final Fantasy games that I have played to this point, being 4, 6, 7, 8, 13, and 16. A lot of variety with some truly banger shit in here. I fucking love this OST. And I fucking love Masashi Hamauzu for making this amazing OST. So I would now be talking about very big plot points and ending spoilers. So if you don't want to be spoiled, I'd advise you to click off now and come back later after you beat the game. If not, then you may proceed, but just know you have been warned. What the heck just happened? What the fuck? What the... Hope's longing for revenge can be pretty irritating, but the reversion is satisfying. I love that Light tries to stop him, but only lights more of a fire in him. She realizes this mistake and tries to talk him out of it while escorting him home to his dad, where Hope is forced into a situation where he needs to rely on Snow while the capital is under fire due to us l'Cie being here. Conflict happens between the two, which leads to both of them being blown off a building. Snow, being the Chad he is, grabs hold of Hope and shields him from harm on the way of his fucking 1440 double titty neckadelia suicide. Snow stops at nothing to protect Hope after not being able to save Hope's mother. Snow, severely injured, carried Hope to safety, but then is almost knocked out from his exhaustion. This leads to Hope truly standing on his own to protect the one he sought to kill. Saz and Vanille's conflict is separate from all of this. They are out adventuring. Turns out Saz's son was crystallized by the Sanctum's l'Cie, which makes Saz's hatred for l'Cie grow to an unbreakable point. He's hopeless because now he and his son are enemies because he is a Sanctum l'Cie and he is a Pulse l'Cie. It shows who caused the crystallization of his son, and the game seems to try to hide it, but is right in front of your face. The person that Saz hates for taking his son away is traveling right next to him. I wish the game hid this for a little longer so we could be like, oh shit, but nah, the game is just like, looky who it is. Isn't it ironic, isn't it? Vanille lives with guilt for most of this journey with Saz and then finally tells him, which leads to trouble because Vanille isn't exactly a double agent, but she's a double agent that the government is using. When Mommy explains that it was Vanille that cursed his son, it sounds worse because now it looks like Vanille is actually fake and hiding her true identity. Vanille runs and Saz chases, ordering her to accept her fate, but he can't do it. He can't kill his traveling buddy and actually believes what she's saying, which she's not lying, but in those shoes, I don't know if I could believe her. Anyways, one of the darkest moments in the series happens, and Saz points a gun to his head, saying, if he can't have Dodge back, then it's over. Bang! My mouth dropped to the fucking floor. I was like, there's no fucking way. But the off-screen gunshot was actually a fake out and not a censorship, which is what I thought it was. I was so happy to see him alive. I think it would have totally killed his character if he died there. Anyways, after all this conflict, they do come to a neutral understanding, and he believes he can truly get his son back this time. Vanille reveals everything to Saz. Her and Fang are actually from the War of Transgression era, and became l'Cie in order to fight Cocoon. Speaking of Fang, that's our last party member, a baddie with such a cool hairstyle that was a friend of Vanille in their orphanage. She has a super badass Aussie voice and is very assertive with dry humor. She has no memory of what happened in the War of Transgression. She works for Sid Raines in the Cavalry, a military branch under the government that seeks out to destroy VII. There's a lot of awesome story beats that happen, like the infiltration of Palomecia in order to save Saz and Vanille after they have been captured. They then face the evil dictator Barty, I'm not saying his fucking name, who kills Auga immediately and then reveals he is indeed a VII, a god that has been planting the fear-mongering of l'Cie in order to make l'Cie stronger. Barty then tells the crew what their focus was and gaslights them into thinking that this is what Sarah wanted all along, the destruction of Cocoon. Because of this, Barty does not kill the crew, which, if they do succeed in destroying Cocoon, this will call out the god, the Maker, which is Barty's goal all along. The themes of anti-authority and carving your own path are present here, especially when the crew doesn't fall for Barty's brainwashing. After escaping, we end up in this arc, the 5th arc to be exact, which is told to be a l'Cie training ground. This part fucking sucked. This dungeon is like 5 hours long of the same trash enemies and boring map layout. I would say this is one of the worst dungeons I've ever played. And the only saving grace is you can choose your party now, 32 hours into the game. But the final boss for the dungeon is quite good though, but it does not make up for that shit. Sid Reigns tries to stop the crew because he believes that they will destroy the cocoon. This boss fight was great. I spent like 30 minutes on it trying not to fucking die as soon as I get super electric god-fisted by the Tekken OC. Upon getting out of the arc, we land smack in the middle of Pulse, and it is beautiful. This is where the game changes completely, at least for the last 2 chapters. One of my favorite moments was the crew invading Eden of Cocoon and marching right up to Barty and his Bayonetta god-looking ass. The cutscene of the crew interrupting a street race was absolutely incredible. The fight scenes were so fluid with some impressive choreography. This boss battle with this guy named Roche, who gets 3 boss battles and they all suck ass. They are so long for literally no reason, and the character has so very little depth that he gets fleshed out at the end for a sacrifice because he decides that Lassie aren't that bad anymore, and I did not give a shit at all. The final dungeon of being in this disturbingly hellish cradle that honestly looks like a futuristic purgatory. This creepy Final Destination music gives me chills, especially while taking a look around on the elevators. There's these chimes and some other instrument, I can't tell what it is. And the organ that comes at the very end makes me damn near shit my pants. Oh, I forgot to mention, you fight this garbage Transformer boss fight for the 3rd time in the span of 2 hours. This shit sucks. But I enjoyed all the other mini boss fights. We then head to the ending. This is the 3rd time we fight Barty, and it is very easy, but that is not the true final boss. Orphan, another Fal'Cie that was lying dormant in the throne, spawning, looking like an enemy straight out of Bayonetta, this yin and yang deity motherfucker. If you want the simple answer, he is essentially the soul of Cocoon, or almost like an anti-version of the concept of Mother Nature in our world. With the death and sacrifices of the entire world, the Maker, or their true god of the world, will be resurrected. I wish there was more lore on the Maker character, because for some reason there's no lore in the data log for them. I really enjoyed this boss fight. It challenges you to switch styles mighty quickly, all the time, or you will die if you don't. Like the times he leaves you at 12 health on every character, you better switch to a double or triple medic paradigm fast. Failing to finish him, he takes control of Vanilla and gives her cock and ball torture, trying to force her anger and despair to transform her into Ragnarok to fulfill Barty's wish. Fang instead takes over and tries to betray her friends. This is one thing that really confused me, and I could never understand. I will actually say that this moment is bad writing. There's not enough context and reason for her to betray her friends, even if that's not actually what she was doing, according to the fan base, and the party turns into Seath, advancing all the way to the final stage of their curse, as soon as she's turned on them. According to the fan base, the goddess Ethel, who is the same goddess who saved Fang from destroying Cocoon back in the day, basically just cures them, because his deity wishes to defy Orphan's plans. This leads to the party to believe they can get over anything and still finish off Orphan. The second phase was very easy. I have nothing to say. Maybe I was over leveled, but I heard this shit was one of the hardest fights in the series? I don't know. Defeating Orphan allows us to use gravity gear and fly into the sky, while Vanille and Fang use the power of Vin Diesel and fuse into Ragnarok. They then make sweet love to each other and turn into crystal. This causes one of the hardest sculptures of all time, even harder than that gooner who died stroking his shit in Pompeii. Like seriously, I want to get this sculpture tatted on my arm. This alone kind of made my pain and suffering of this ending go away. The rest of the party crystallized because they completed their focus of saving Cocoon, even though they didn't really do it. Vanille and Fang did. Everyone becomes crystallized, and then uncrystallizes. Sarah and Dodge are freed from the crystal because, why not? So I checked on Reddit why this could possibly make any sense, and apparently this is explained in the second game. The ending just left me with so many questions, which in theory is fine, but I wanted a hint of what happened at least without me scratching my head for an hour until I give up and look up an explained video. I'm not gonna lie, I really enjoyed this game. While the battle system can get repetitive for regular battles, the boss battles always had me switching up my team and trying different tactics. I think the only way to tell this story with its depth for the characters was to split the crew up, similar to pre-time skip One Piece when they want to cover many character arcs. The narrative's themes of characters choosing their own future against the authority of fate was told well, and may have only been done well with the linear story. I hope all my inconsistencies and questions can be solved in 13.2 and Lightning Returns, because I'm looking forward to playing those games, but I need a break for right now, so those videos won't come out till later. Anyways, is Final Fantasy 13 the worst Final Fantasy? Well, that's up to you. Out of all the ones I've played, it probably is the worst, but I think the characters are some of the best in the series, and without a doubt, the soundtrack is one of my favorites in the series. While the writing might have had some hiccups, the story told what it was going to tell, and it was interesting throughout the whole time. Not many games make me do homework by looking at the data log to find the answers, which was kind of an interesting experience. And I didn't really mind it, but I can see that being a turnoff for a lot of people. But yeah, I would say it's a pretty good game. Maybe not the best Final Fantasy, but it's a good game. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching, and I want to know, what do you think of the quote-unquote worst Final Fantasy? Leave a comment down below. See ya.